Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another FPC NFL Sunday. That's right. It's December the 19th. We are kind of in the middle of week 15 as we've had already two matchups prior to the start of this Sunday. And then, of course, we got a bunch of them coming on Monday and Tuesday. It's quite a football-filled couple of days here, but we're going to focus here on the last couple of days and, of course, this Sunday's matchup, today's matchups, because we do have quite a few and a couple pretty big ones. But first and foremost, I will say this. Braden, congratulations. Your Chiefs are now in sole possession for now of the top seed in the AFC after starting 3-4, which is impressive in and of itself. They held on to beat the Chargers, in my opinion, because Brandon Staley is a dope, but that's neither here nor there. That'll be in a few minutes. And, of course, the Patriots losing last night, which gives Kansas City that positioning. So before Sunday even starts, we get a great, really power shift in the AFC. A lot to talk about. First, we're going to react to last night's game because it's fresh in our memories. The Patriots obviously really came out flat early. A lot of mistakes early on. Fell behind 20-0, crawled back in, but unfortunately, time sort of ran out on the Patriots, and they fell to the Colts, who, look, they're kind of hot and cold. I mean, this was a game that, Carson Wentz wasn't good. I mean, I think you can easily make the argument that despite Mac Jones's struggles, he was a better quarterback than Carson Wentz last night. The Colts struggled when the ball was in Carson Wentz's hands. Like it was best for them to get it out of his hands. But the Patriots, unfortunately, did not have enough time to complete the comeback. They made a valiant effort, but there's no style points. There's no moral victories that count in the standings. The Patriots do fall out of that top seed and now become one of the teams in the mix. They're no longer controlling their own destiny. They are still at the top of the AFC East. That's fine with them for now. But right now they do find themselves kind of in the mix. So I'll start with something that we talked about before we got on there, and it's kind of a hot topic, the decision to kick the field goal. Anyone who follows me or at least listens to me, good for you. I mean, that's I don't know if I could listen to myself speak as much as I actually speak, but I'm not anti-analytics. I'm against blindly trusting them and using them to, sway decisions or justify decisions that I think are wrong in a football sense. Bill Belichick decides to kick a field goal down 13 points last night with roughly 9 minutes left to go in the game, meaning, well, they still needed 2 possessions to overcome and win that game. That was met with a lot of criticism from the analytics community saying, well, no, it was a dumb decision. They should have put all their eggs in one basket and tried to go on 4th and 7. Now, Ricky, you and I have talked about this, and we talked about it before we got on the air. How good are the Patriots in the red zone this season?
Basically, if Mac Jones isn't throwing a touchdown to Hunter Henry or they're running the ball, they can't score a touchdown in the red zone more often than not.
Yeah, they're bottom third in the league. I think their completion or their conversion percentage rate is just above 50%. So they're not that good. It's one of their big flaws this season. One of the reasons why they're middle of the pack offensively. They get opportunities. They can move the ball between the 20s, and generally they do it pretty well. Assuming, Josh McDaniels isn't calling toss plays on third and whatever. But for the most part, they struggle when they get to the red zone. Now, naturally, the field shortens, so every team is obviously it becomes more difficult. But for the Patriots, they're one of the worst teams. It's one of the things they do the worst this entire season. They do a lot of things well. This is not one of them. So to me, in my opinion, I looked at that, given the scenario, given the situation in that second half. I don't care about what happened, in 2019 between two teams not named the Colts and the Patriots. I don't care what happened last week with 2 other teams. I don't care what happened in the first quarter. What I know was the Patriots defense had held the Colts to 3 drives in that second half, totaling 1:39, 3 minutes and 5 seconds, and 1:49 seconds. They were dominating defensively. So going into that decision, Bill Belichick plays the clock game. It's a gamble either way. We're not saying that it's a perfect, it's going to work out perfectly. It's a gamble. But you look at the situation. you look at the time, and you look at how the Patriots defense had been playing. You look at how the Patriots offense had been playing between the 20s, and you say, okay, you kicked the field goal. Yeah, you're still down by 2 scores, but being down 10 is a lot better than being down 13. And at the end of the day, what did this team in was, unfortunately, they did not stick with the second half game plan and keep the Colts on the field for less than 3 minutes. They allowed them to drive the ball for 5 minutes. They got the ball back. And even in that situation, at the end of the day, they were in a position coming out of the 2-minute warning to have a chance to stop the Colts on third down in their own territory. And they would have only needed a field goal. You open up the playbook quite a bit when you have only a field goal versus needing a touchdown. So there's a lot of factors, I think, play into it more so than just looking at a chart and a graph with a couple fancy numbers on it. So not everyone agrees with me, of course, if you've seen my timeline, but I will still consider last night's decision a perfectly fine decision from Bill Belichick. And yeah, I mean, if I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
I didn't really think about the decision itself as the turning point of the game. I mean, to me, what I think you take away from last night is this Patriot team is not the Patriot team of old. Mm-hmm. The fact that you had players come out basically and say, look, we didn't practice well. We didn't come prepared. I mean, I'm sorry. That's inexcusable to come into a week where you had a bye, you had a week off, and you come out flat and you basically admit that you had a bad week of practice. Like, that's for a team knowing that they control their own destiny. I can't accept that because you know that to stop the Colts, you have to stop Jonathan Taylor. And this defense, it kind of reminds you when they played the Ravens and they bought in their own hype and Lamar and that crew ran all over them. So you kind of have to take that. The fact that the Colts beat you at your game where Mac Jones throws for 20 yards 2 weeks ago and you win, Carson Wentz throws for 60 yards and you lose. It's a different game plan, obviously. And it just shows this team's limitations. Look, they can't win a game where they get down 14-0, 17-0. And they really just committed dumb penalties, stupid decisions. Indy was the more desperate team. They needed the game. And I think Mac Jones will grow from this especially in the second half. But it's just a reminder that, look, if the Patriots win the AFC East and they go to the playoffs, maybe they win a game, it's a successful season. But it just shows you where this team is. And it shows you, honestly, what Indy can do. Because, honestly, Jonathan Taylor is the MVP of the league. Because without him, Indy's like a 5-win team.
I'll let you talk, Braden, but I'm going to come back to that because that's something else I've commented on. And we'll talk about that actually in just a second. But, Braden, I want to hear what you think about just the decision or, whatever thoughts you have on it.
Yeah, I think, and it was like from the 7-yard line, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Like 4th goal. So I think you look at what success they were having to that point offensively. I think it was the right decision just to get points. And like you said, with the gamble they were taking, that's a quarterback going against, I think with that defense that you feel pretty good. I mean, he already had one interception thrown where I don't know what he was seeing on that play. It was like 3 defenders right in a row. So I think with that quarterback, I think it's the right decision just because, excuse me, I think you can see the Colts were really clearly running out of gas, and it's not the first time we've kind of seen that this year. So I think the decision itself, I think you also kind of help Mac Jones in that situation. If you get the ball back, say it's a little bit, closer game down the line, I think he has a little more confidence later on too, to kind of, be able to put himself in position to make a better play down there. Maybe it's not 4th and goal from the 7, maybe it's from the 1 or 2, and he has a better shot to maybe get that into the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they were still at some point going to have to overcome their red zone difficulties. But, given the option of putting everything in one basket and going forward on 4th and 7, I'll take the potential of having potentially 4 chances at it in a future drive. And that, again, that's the gamble you take. I mean, that's why it's football. That's why it's strategy. No decision, is 100% right every single time. You have to, play the flow of the game. And like I said, at the end of the day, he was given they had a shot. Unfortunately, Jonathan Taylor was quiet no more because, again, he was kind of, after the first quarter, they did a pretty good job of keeping him in check. But, again, very quickly that gets turned upside down. And to some others' point too, they say, oh, well, the positive in going for it, even if you miss, is that now the Colts are backed up on their goal line. Well, no, that's not necessarily a positive, because now the Colts have 93 yards to work, work the clock and drain the clock. And you have the best running back in the league. Guess what? There's a pretty good chance if Frank Reich decides that, assuming he doesn't decide to somehow put it in Carson Wentz's hand, you just run the clock and you take your chances. And in 93 yards, you can burn 5, 6, 7 minutes off the clock, and then you have no shot. So it's not necessarily a positive you miss. So, okay, I want to go back to your comment, Ricky, about Jonathan Taylor being the MVP, because, I disagree that he's the MVP of the league. He's by far the MVP of the Colts. And he quite certainly will be, or quite possibly should be, the offensive player of the year, because his production above his peers is deserving of that award. And, and I think that's inappropriate. But for the MVP, and unfair as it might be, it's a quarterback's league. So naturally, just the level of responsibility, or the amount of responsibility on a quarterback's shoulders, will naturally make that team, or make him, more valuable, either positively or negatively. Like, we saw how good Jonathan Taylor was yesterday, but by virtue of Carson Wentz only being able to throw 57 yards, the Patriots were still in that game. So when it comes to Brady versus Taylor, which is, what I think, the conversation would be, because I think Brady is the front runner, fair or not, I mean, as great as the season as Jonathan Taylor is having, the just raw production numbers, you cannot convince me that any running back is going to be more valuable than a quarterback. And again, it may not be fair, but it's just the nature of football. The quarterback is the team. It is what it is. That's why defensive players hardly get recognition. I mean, hell, Lawrence Taylor in 1986, last defensive MVP. And that's why, running backs rarely get it and are really getting phased out, because this game is more and more about the quarterback. So great season for Jonathan Taylor. I understand why people want to give him the nod, because again, I think it's fair that it gets. I do think it's fair. I don't want to confuse that. I do think it's fair given the responsibility that the quarterback has. But I understand people saying, "Man, it's hard to not recognize the great season Jonathan Taylor has and the importance that he has to the Colts." And also, at the end of the day, the team that has the quarterback that's leading the race, in my opinion, has more victories and more success as a team than that Colts team. So even if Jonathan Taylor is that much valuable, to the Colts specifically, it still, in my opinion, is a far cry from being the most valuable player in the league. And unfortunately, he has one hand tied behind his back being a running back.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I think it's going to go to a quarterback. And I just feel like this year, when we're trying to nitpick between quarterbacks, you can make a case for Brady, you can make a case for Rodgers, you could have made a case before Monday's debacle for Kyler Murray, you could, I guess, make a case for Josh Allen. When we're trying to nitpick quarterbacks, and you look at Taylor, who has scored a touchdown in every game since week 3, who's going to win, who's going to rush for over 2,000 yards, who's going to rush for over 20 touchdowns. And I get it. It's true. If Indy had less than 6 losses or 7 losses, they would be in a much better position. It just seems like he's what they do. And I feel like when I thought about this with the Heisman until Bryce Young played well against Georgia, we try to force something, and we're trying to find, okay, maybe him. There's no definitive guy this year, so you could make the argument, but I do agree with you. In a league that's defined by the quarterback, you have to give it to the quarterback, I feel like, unless it's an unworldly season like LT when he had it with the Chargers, or Sean Alexander breaking the record for Seattle.
Well, and real quick, I would say maybe not definitive, but I think that's where we differ a little bit. I think right now, here, as I wear my TB2, I hate when I do this to myself sometimes, because I really make myself look like just kind of a fanboy here. But the reality of it is, I think it is pretty definitive, because if you think about it, I know people have somehow used this as a knock against him, but Brady throws more than any quarterback in the league, and he's successful doing it. There's obviously a lot of numbers to support that, but he also leads in every single kind of important offensive quarterback category outside of EPA, which he's third. Everything else, it's 1-1-1-1-1. So he has, excuse me, and at the end of the day, Jonathan Taylor, 2,000 yards, 20 touchdowns. That's half, and in some cases, a third of what Brady is going to produce as a player. So, I do think Brady has a pretty significant lead because even I like Rodgers as being kind of the second guy in this mix. And I certainly understand the case for him. And I think it's a pretty good case. But at the end of the day, just how this award is handed out, you need success and you also need the raw numbers. I mean, it's just how it is. Very rarely do these awards get handed out to, less than productive players. I mean, it is what it is. And in the case of Brady versus Rodgers, Brady's out producing him by a pretty significant margin, even just, and this isn't just because Rodgers missed the game. Like if Rodgers missed the game, played that game, Brady would still have a fairly decent lead in all those categories. So I that's where I think you and I differ a little bit, Ricky. I do think that he does have a pretty strong grasp, and you take into account the Bucs defense isn't that good. They're middle of the pack, near the bottom third of the league, and a lot of things outside of rush defense. Now, a lot of that has to do with health. They've had at times, their fourth, fifth, and sixth string cornerbacks playing. That's part of it. But the Bucs just seem to rely so much more on Brady's arm, sometimes to a detriment. Because again, you need to be able to run the ball in this league, even if it's just for show. You need to be able to do it. Now they've done that a little bit better these last few weeks, but for the majority of the season, it's really Brady's arm or bust. If they start slow, then the Bucs are in trouble. If they don't, they're doing pretty good. They're usually taking the third and fourth quarter off, making it a little bit interesting. But at the end of the day, they walk off the field with a win because Tom's the man. So.
No, again, I think Brady's the MVP. I mean, I just would like to give credence to Jonathan Taylor and what he probably is on pace again. Like he's probably going to carry it 30 times the next 3 games, especially Vegas, Cardinals, Jacksonville. So he's going to rush for over 350 carries this season. And I guess an 17 game schedule is a little bit different, averaging almost 6 a game. It just seems like you're right. There should be different categories. And I think also with Indianapolis, I mean, you think about it, they were 1-4 their first 5 games, and they're probably gonna make the playoffs. And I think people underestimate Indianapolis because we looked at their schedule and they're a bad team. A lot of teams, like we talked about, I think earlier in the season, would have done the same with that schedule. And they're the team I think you don't want to play in the playoffs because they can run the football and they have a really good front seven. Darius Leonard's fantastic. I mean, he's a great middle linebacker. I'm concerned with their secondary, but besides that, Indy's that team on a wild card weekend you don't want to play, and I think they will get in because I think it's 10 wins you need. They probably will win 2, even though Jacksonville's a lot tougher than what they looked like 3 weeks ago, considering who's not there anymore.
Yeah,
but they're a team. They're one of those 6-7 seeds I think you don't want to play.
Yeah, and look, I mean, honestly, their biggest fatal flaw is Carson Wentz, and for the most part, Carson Wentz has had a really good season, and we've seen it. I don't know, maybe a little bit more these last few weeks, or maybe it's just perception is that we have, but there's still that Carson Wentz in him. I mean, look, he tried like hell to throw an interception yesterday. I mean, I tweeted about it 20 minutes before he actually threw his interception. He wanted to throw an interception, and it was the most non-surprising thing ever. So, he could be that fatal flaw for Indy. But I agree with you, Ricky. I mean, they got the offensive line. I mean, who doesn't want to run behind Quentin Nelson? They have Jonathan Taylor. Like I said, I'm not anti-Taylor for MVP because I love Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's again, you watch him run, you watch his vision, his instincts, just where to go, where to run. I mean, that 66-yard touchdown, he was dead to rights. He made 2 of the best Patriots inside run stuffers miss, and he dashed up the field for 66 yards. And that you tip your cap to him and say that's a hell of a play, hell of a run. But that's the thing for Indy. They need to be at home, I think. But I also feel like, I mean, it's tough with Carr. I'm not I have a little bit more faith in him based on what we've seen this year, but I'm still You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like he's a mistake waiting to happen. And like a very bad, like that interception was awful. That was a absolute backbreaker, and everyone knew it was coming. Like, like I'm not the only one who predicted it. I'm not trying to take credit and say that I'm this great predictor. I said it yesterday. It's like predicting the sun was going to rise. Like that was going to happen. Like it was only a matter of time, and I feel like that's not going to go away for the Colts. So for the Colts, they could go on a nice run, but I don't know if they can get 3 or 4 games of mistake-free football in the playoffs from Carson Wentz. And that to me is asking for quite a bit, even if they do end up playing the Patriots again. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's certainly a team that, again, this is going to be a fun AFC playoff. There's a lot of good teams, some that are separating themselves from others, but even, and again, Braden will say it himself, even the Chiefs, this isn't a season in the past where it was the Chiefs and everyone else. Yeah, the Chiefs are in the first position, but I think any team in the AFC right now can beat one another. It's hard for me to not think that can happen. So,
yeah, and I think with Kansas City, I mean, this is a team that I think it's been kind of week to week, depending on what you're going to get from each side. I think obviously kind of depends who they're playing, but I think schematically it's been hit or miss as far as when you're going to see Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce go off. And I think defensively, I think obviously if you don't have some of those top guys, we saw what could happen. I think physically Thursday night against the Chargers without Chris Jones or so. I think week to week right now it's kind of hold on for dear life, so to speak, and kind of see if you can get the ball to bounce your way and make those impact plays at the crucial moments.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I still think that the Patriots and Chiefs are probably the best 2 teams in the conference. But again, I don't think the gap's that big. You know what I mean? I know people are going to overreact and kind of, have those knee-jerk reactions to what we saw last night. But, at the end of the day, again, there's no moral victories. There's no credit given to having good runs or good moments. It's just when you want to actually observe and evaluate based on reality and not narrative, you can sit there and say, well, the Patriots did a lot of things bad, but there were a lot of good things in terms of how does your young quarterback react to not having a great few moments? Well, I would think that most reasonable people, not named Nick Wright, would sit there and say, for a rookie, he responded pretty well. He's got to be better at making some of those decisions. Like, some of those, again, decisions he made, he looked like a rookie. And guess what? Surprise, surprise. That's what he is. So you got to accept a little bit of that and not put everything on that and realize that after that, I think he played pretty well. And there were certain moments that he really stepped up and made some plays that make you say, okay, you know what? In the future, you expect him to grow from this and not take a step back, because we've seen quarterbacks with performances and you sit there and you're like, oh God, that's a confidence guy. I mean, look at Zach Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson makes a mistake. That's doomsday. If Mac Jones makes a mistake, it's like, okay, let's see what he does after. And so far he's done pretty well in some of those situations. So it'll be fun the last few weeks. But anyways, let's forget about the past. Who cares about the past right now? Let's talk about the future, the present, which is Sunday. We got a handful of some pretty good matchups. Obviously, we're going to have some games shifted to Monday and Tuesday because of obviously COVID running rampant throughout the NFL right now, and the NFL obviously changing the rules on the fly to make sure that this doesn't affect future games, because hey, that's what it's about, folks. The bottom line, not health. So, but anyways, that gives us 3, 6, 9, 10. Apparently, I can't count 10 games today. Starting with Carolina and Buffalo at 1, and of course being capped off with New Orleans at Tampa Bay on Sunday Night Football. So before we get into our game picks, though, we're going to do what we do every week, and that's our prop bets. So we're going to get started as soon as I pull up, obviously, the screen. Now, granted, I had to go through and make sure that I took all the ones that I had out from Thursday, because for some reason I included those in this. But of course, I do have some that will now be played on Monday. So we're just going to have to go through it. So we're going to start with the Raiders and the Browns. Originally supposed to be the first game yesterday in a doubleheader, but of course, based on the outbreaks, certainly with the Browns, it became necessary to move this game, and it will now be played on Monday afternoon. But it's a pretty big game in the AFC. We talked about the top half of the AFC. Well, the bottom half is still churning, and these are some of the teams that are right in the mix. This is going to be a pretty important game, especially for the Browns, who, again, were looking to be without pretty much their entire starting roster. You know, they were pretty much playing a B team if they were to play yesterday. But looks like things are going to be pretty good, or at least in good shape for them to get everyone back. Over, under 44.5 points in this game. I'll start with you, Ricky.
Are we sure they're getting everybody back? I still think I know they're changed it to where they're going to get some back, but
there's certainly a better possibility. If they played the game yesterday, there was 100% chance. No, but I think they're doing what they can to make sure that this happens.
But are we assuming Nick Mullins is the quarterback? I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
I don't think Baker's going to be the quarterback. I do this with COVID games, and the reason I don't really pick them on the show I do is because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, being that Vegas's offense is inconsistent, as Braden saw last week, and the Browns just struggle to score when they have healthy bodies, yet alone their roster compromised, I think I'm going to go under. It just seems like the safe play, and just be surprised if this game is 27-24 somehow.
Yeah, I also am going to go under. I think you just look at the amount of impact players right now on each side. Very, very limited receiving core on each side, especially if Darren Waller, again, does not play. When they made the official report Friday or Thursday, it looked like he was going to be out. So I just think there's not enough impact players to really have a back-and-forth high-scoring game. So got to go with the under.
Yeah, I gotta agree with both of you on that one. I do have a Nick Mullins question in here later, so be prepared for that one. James Robinson touches versus the Texans, 18.5 over under.
Oh, way over. I don't care if Urban Meyer called James Robinson and they patch things up. James Robinson's angry. He's going to get Darrell Bevell's going to give him at least 25, 30 touches today. And it's the Texans. What a perfect game to have a get right game. Way over.
Yeah, I gotta agree, and I think Carlos Hyde is out today with a concussion, so that's even gonna help. That one of Urban's favorites is not gonna be available. So yeah, I think like you said, Ricky, I think Bevel's gonna kind of make it a point today, especially going up against that defense. Not enough resistance up front right now in the front seven, so I'm gonna go over as well.
All right, next. We have, here we go. Cowboys, Giants. All important game in the NFC East. The Giants are still in it, folks. They're still in it. There's a chance that they can make the playoffs. Anyone want to make that bet? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? No. Okay. That's not what we're talking about. We're not going to bet on, or we're not making a guess on whether or not the Giants are going to make the playoffs. What we are going to guess on is who in this game is going to have the most receiving yards: CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Kenny Galladay, Sterling Shepard, or the all-important other. What say you, Ricky?
Definitely not taking any Giants because it's Mike Glennon. I'll go CeeDee Lamb. I think you could get more short passes with CeeDee Lamb, and Dak seems to find him in any situation. If I had to go other, Dalton Schultz would be a sneaky good candidate here. But for the sake of the four names, I'll go CeeDee Lamb.
I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb as well. I think this is kind of one of those games where I think he's going to turn kind of those plays that look to be short gains into larger ones. Whereas I think with Amari Cooper, it might be a little bit tougher coverage to beat. So I got to go Lamb as well.
All right. Let's see. Gibson versus Sanders, more total yards in week 15. Antonio Gibson, Miles Sanders.
I'm going to go Miles Sanders largely because, again, who's under quarterback for Washington? Is it Heineke? Is it Kyle Allen? Is it Garrett Gilbert? Is it Robert Griffin III? We don't even know. So, and I think Washington was down to like their third string center at one point. If that's the case, it's going to be tough for him to run the football, especially against that Eagles defensive line. So I'll go Sanders.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Sanders as well, just because it is total yards. I I think you look at it, not just the Philly front that they're facing, but the Gibson usage has kind of been inconsistent again, kind of what we saw earlier in the year. I don't know if it's just kind of game script based off of points or what it is, but Gibson kind of back in the inconsistent mode. So got to go with Sanders.
All right. Unlike Spider-Man, I did spoil this next one. Oh, no, I'm spoiling everything right now. Yeah. Okay, folks, I'm just giving everything away. I'm LaShawn McCoying this right now for anyone out there who remembers what he did around Endgame. But I mentioned we had Nick Mullins on the list here, assuming he plays. Over under 1.5 touchdown passes versus Raiders. Pretty vulnerable pass defense.
I'll go with the under. Largely, I think he'll get 2 touchdowns. I think we get 1 pass touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. I think you'll see a lot of Nick Chubb in this game because largely he's the only Brown you probably will start on your fantasy team unless you're like Donovan Peoples-Jones. But I just don't really think with a short week for him, finding out he's the starter was like Wednesday, Thursday. And he's fully capable of having a decent game. But I think if you're Vegas, you should be able to stop Nick Mullins. So I'll say 2 total, but passing under.
Yeah, I'll go under as well, just because I do think it is more of a Nick Chubb game, the Ernest Johnson kind of game. I think this is kind of one of those that I think Cleveland doesn't try to maybe be too bold. I think they try to maybe play it safe and just kind of hope that their defense helps them out. So going to go with the under.
Last but not least, total points in that big Cowboys-Giants game, 45.5 over under.
I'm trying to see what the first meeting was. What, something along the lines of, as I have it up here, 44-20 with 64 points. So Dallas basically put up 45 the first game, and now they're more healthier than they were in that game. The Giants had at least everybody for a half in that first one. I'm gonna go over. It's like it's got like a 38-14 written all over it. I'll take the over.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dallas could get there on their own today. I think this is one of those that Dak Prescott maybe gets back on the right side of things a little bit. Not necessarily been as bad as he could be lately, but just seems like he's struggling. This is kind of one of those division rivalry games that maybe could get him out of a slump. So gonna go with the over.
All right, so that is it for our pickup props. Check them out over at Pickup HQ on Twitter. They changed the Twitter handle, so I want to make sure I got it right. So that means it's time to make our game picks. And like I said, there's 10 games today. We have 4 spread across Monday and Tuesday the rest of the way. So let's get right into it. Buffalo obviously has a little bit of a window opportunity here to come in and potentially make some noise in the AFC East, but they're going to have to win this game first. Carolina heading to Buffalo. Who do you have, Ricky?
The Panthers are rotating quarterbacks every drive practically now. I don't think they know who's going to be under center. It's probably means Sam Darnold's going to get a shot at some point again if he's healthy. The Bills, I think they realize what's at stake. They're going to come out and play a much better game. They played a solid second half against Tampa Bay. Maybe they can build on that. And knowing they need this game to make Week 16 basically winner take all in the division, they're going to find a way to win. So give me the Bills.
I'm going to go Bills as well. I don't want to say any game's kind of easy, especially this season, but this feels like one. I think if the Bills are kind of who they think they are, I think they're going to kind of come out aggressive out of the gates. And like Ricky said, I mean, the rotating of quarterbacks, I think Matt Rule kind of came out and said the other day, I think he's ready to get someone in there that doesn't turn the ball over. So I don't know who that'll be going into next year, but yeah, I think Buffalo will win probably pretty big today.
Yeah, I'm taking Buffalo as well. So a nice little clean sweep there. Detroit hosting the Cardinals. The Cardinals looking to rebound, and I think they will because, well, it's Detroit. And, yeah. So anyone want to pick the Lions? Anyone?
Nope.
No one? Ricky, is your mic off or something? Are you trying to pick the Lions and we just can't hear you? Is that it?
No. Arizona, though, I was hearing a stat in ESPN today. They're 7-0 on the road, and they've won all 7 by double digits. So this should be it hasn't happened since 1984, and still a chance for Arizona to go 9-0 on the road, which considering this year would be impressive.
All right. So next we have the Miami Dolphins, who currently own the second longest winning streak in the AFC, hosting the New York Jets, who I don't know if they even know how to spell winning streaks. So to me, I'm taking the Dolphins. They've looked good over the last 2 months, and there's nothing the Jets have done to give me any sort of confidence that they can win a game like this. So give me the Dolphins.
I think this game would be a lot closer if Myles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmed did not play and Miami was down to like Malcolm Brown and Duke Johnson at running back and no Jalen Waddle. And even then, I'd probably still pick the Dolphins. So, yeah, give me Miami.
Yeah, I think Miami's defense is playing good enough right now too, where I think some of those COVID absences may not really look as dire for this team, and really Tua's playing pretty good right now, not making a lot of mistakes, just making a lot of smart decisions. So I think that'll continue today against a bad Jets team.
Next, we have Dallas at the Giants. I think we all agree it's going to be a high-scoring game. I believe Dallas is going to win it because, well, they're just a better team, and Giants are, well, they're the Giants. They're 4-9 and pretty much out of nowhere. So give me the Cowboys.
So I don't know if both of you are familiar with this story. Did you guys see the story of what's happening at MetLife Stadium today?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
No.
So it is Fan Appreciation Day at MetLife Stadium. So the Giants are rewarding their season ticket holders, which I don't know how many are showing up today. It's mostly Cowboy fans at the stadium. They're rewarding their season ticket holders with a free medium soda. Not a large soda, not a souvenir cup, not all like just a free medium soda. So that's how much the Giants care about their fans. So that's how much they should care about this game. Dallas, big.
Wow. Not even a liter cola, man. You're just a medium.
I don't know if I could really add much to that. That just sounds so sad. I think anything since they built MetLife Stadium, it's been pretty sad there. So probably going to continue today in a big blowout, I think, with Dallas winning.
Oof, man, that's so sad. Poor John. You know what? I have a friend from back home. He's a Giants fan. I'm gonna call him today just to talk because that just makes me sad. Anyways, Tennessee at Pittsburgh in another really kind of pretty big AFC matchup for both teams. I mean, Pittsburgh. Yeah. Despite the, some awful football they played, they're right in the mix, not only in their division, but also in the AFC wildcard race. And Tennessee also now has an opportunity to leapfrog the Patriots, who they lost to earlier this season because they are sitting at 9-4 and obviously can get up to that second seed. I actually think I like Pittsburgh at home. Like I think this is kind of a, who we're going to get from Ben Roethlisberger, and obviously I'm counting on getting a pretty good Ben Roethlisberger game today. I think Pittsburgh wins this.
In fact, a Tennessee win today would give them the number 1 seed in the AFC because they would have the win over Kansas City. So it's a huge game for them. And I thought I was going to be the only one to take the Steelers, Ian, so you kind of stole my thunder on that. But largely just because I think Tennessee against Jacksonville didn't look good. Like, it was really just Jacksonville's just terrible. I know A.J. Brown's still not there and Julio Jones is just getting back, but they really couldn't move the ball at all in that game. And at least Pittsburgh, second half, they found something. And when you get these games at home and Ben's only got a couple of home games left, you would think they're going to play with more of a sense of urgency today. You think Claypool's going to have his head on straight today. You think. Yeah, when one of these close games at home, the Steelers usually find a way to win them. So I think Pittsburgh wins today.
Yeah, I think this is a game that really favors Pittsburgh in a lot of ways. I think Tennessee's style of play, just because I think they're not necessarily an explosive team and doesn't put a lot of points up on the board, really helps Pittsburgh. And I think even though they had that bad start in Minnesota, obviously second half kind of helped them. I think this is one of those teams as weird and as kind of variant as they've been. They can kind of wipe those clean, I think, pretty easily. And I just think this is one of those games that Ben Roethlisberger is going to kind of play his heart out, especially knowing he still has a chance to maybe make the playoffs in what could be his final Steelers season. So I got Pittsburgh as well.
All right. Wow. Well, look at that, Ricky. You figured at least one of us were going to take Tennessee, but I think maybe it could be a little bit of wishful thinking from all of us that Tennessee loses, but hey, whatever. It is what it is. I still think it's a legit pick. Next, Jacksonville hosting Houston, and as much as I'd like to give Jacksonville some momentum because of the loss, and I say that very opposite of the meaning of the word loss of Urban Meyer, I still think Houston's going to pull this one out. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think Jacksonville, this is certainly an addition by subtraction. I still don't think Jacksonville's good enough to win too many games. So I don't know. I could be wrong. Anyone want to take Jacksonville? Go ahead.
Can this game be a tie?
It could. It could.
I mean, this is the battle where if you lose, you win, because if you lose, you're probably getting the number 2 pick in the draft and getting to take Aiden Hutchinson, and you still kind of win. But I think it's just who's the best player on the field today. It's probably James Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
And Davis Mills has done okay. I mean, he was decent against Seattle last week for about a half or so. I think they can build something with him a little bit. I just think Trevor Lawrence is going to have his best game today. I think he's going to come out feeling loose. This team just took a huge sigh of relief this week. Like, he's not here to kick the kicker or do anything else anymore. We can just play our game. We don't have to worry about him treating us like kids. And I think they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder today. So I'll take Jacksonville.
I'm going to go Houston. I don't really feel good about Davis Mills, but I think the fact that the Jaguars have only scored about 4 touchdowns in the last 6 or so games, that's really the biggest reason, I guess. I think Houston's defense maybe can make a little bit more stops as far as maybe just forcing them to take field goals if they have a chance to score. So don't feel good about it, but I'll go Houston.
All right, next we have Denver hosting the Bengals. Another pretty important matchup in the AFC. There's certainly implications, certainly in the AFC North, because that's a division that is really locked up pretty tight and could end in a 4-way tie if you think about it. This is a game where I'm just gonna, I think I'm gonna just side with the home team. I think Cincinnati has moments where they look like one of the elite teams in the league, but then they also have moments where they don't. And I think it's too frequent that we get both of those on a week-to-week basis. So I like Denver in this game. I like how they play at home, and I think the advantage of playing at home in Denver is more of a factor than in most places. So give me the Broncos.
Not bad weather in Denver today, which I would have liked it to be more of a colder game this afternoon. The problem is, I think for the Bengals, the Broncos are more reliable. You kind of know what they are with Bridgewater and Williams, and they're a running team that's defensively over the last 3 weeks played really well. Even though they lost the Chiefs, they held them to 22 points. So it's still a good accomplishment there. And the Bengals right now, you can't trust them as far as you can throw them. So in this case, go with the home team and go with the more dependable team, meaning they kind of are consistent week in and week out in how they play. So I'll take Denver at home.
Yeah, I believe it was Greg Rosenthal that kind of said in DVOA, these teams are kind of on the opposite sides of what you would expect. Denver's 12th right now offensively, Cincinnati 21st, and then defensively, Cincinnati's actually better right now, 12th compared to Denver 21st. So really tough game for me. I think really I just trust Cincinnati's defense a little more today. I think Joe Burrow, I'm going to side with the better quarterback, and I think he'll make enough plays, maybe on his own, to kind of get them in position. So toss-up, I'm actually going to go with Cincinnati on the road today.
That is actually very fascinating, because I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, Denver seems like they would have the better defense. Well, perception isn't always reality, so that is peculiar, though. I didn't expect it to be that much of a flip, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, hey, good. Yeah, maybe Cincinnati wins, but no, I do like Joe Burrow. I do think Joe Burrow's the better of the quarterbacks, and I always like to give a little bit of an edge to that. So maybe I'll be wrong, and Cincinnati will win this one. San Francisco hosting Atlanta. I like the 49ers. I think they should win this game, and by the way they playing, the way they have been playing, certainly lends credence to that, certainly going up against the Falcons. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons make this interesting, and I honestly even wouldn't be shocked if they somehow won this game. I'm still taking the 49ers. I don't know. This is a very weird game to me. San Francisco should win this one, but I don't know. Atlanta's weird. I can never get a grasp on Atlanta. Like I you know what I mean? I can't handle it. So I'll take the 49ers, but I'm not that confident.
Yeah, in the Kyle Shanahan Bowl, the George Kittle is just the most consistent player on the field. And I give the Falcons a lot of credit. They're starting to play with an identity. Cordell Patterson's going to make himself a ton of money. But I think in more who you trust and not screw it up. I know Matt Ryan and Jimmy Garoppolo can both screw it up. But to me, with the lack of weapons on Atlanta, Matt Ryan's more likely to make the mistake. So give me San Francisco.
I'm kind of on the same wavelength you are, Ian. I don't think the 49ers covered today, but I do have them winning. I just think Matt Ryan's making a lot of good decisions right now. I think kind of finishing this season as well as he can. And I think Cordero Patterson will kind of keep him in it enough. But I think San Francisco eventually their defense will make a late stop and I think pull it out some way.
All right. Next, we have Baltimore hosting the Packers. And obviously, the big story being the absence of Lamar Jackson. The reality of it is the way he's been playing, I don't know how much of a loss it's truly going to be. I still think Green Bay would have won this game regardless. I don't think the fact that they're going to be without Lamar Jackson is going to have that much of an impact, because the reality of it is he just hasn't been having a good season. Certainly not the last month and a half. He's at times been sort of a detriment to the success of the Ravens team, even at home. At home, at least I give Baltimore a little bit of a chance. And look, this Packers offense isn't, it isn't. I don't know how to describe it. It's not a. It's not an offense that's going to absolutely crush you. They're kind of, I believe they're borderline top 10. I don't have it in front of me, like in terms of points per game and yards and stuff like that. So they're a good offense. They're just not one of the elite offense. They're not the Bucs. They're not the, I think the Chiefs are 7th in points per game, right? Points per game. They're not the Rams, who I think are 2nd in points per game and total points and stuff like that. They're a pretty good offense. So Baltimore is certainly capable of keeping themselves in this game. And again, I don't think the loss of Lamar Jackson is going to hurt them based on how they've been playing. He's been playing recently, as much as some people are going to say. But I still don't think this Ravens team has a shot. I got Green Bay on the road.
Cool stat from Field Yates from ESPN. Aaron Rodgers today has 439 passing touchdowns. He needs 4 to tie Brett Favre for the most in Packers history. Not only is Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey out, Jimmy Smith for the Ravens has COVID and is out today. So I think you and I and all three of us are going to play secondary for the Ravens. The only thing that's stopping Aaron Rodgers from tying this record today is the Packers are at home, and Rodgers might want to break Brett Favre's record on Christmas against Cleveland. Maybe they let A.J. Dillon or Aaron Jones do some things. I don't think Rodgers breaks the record or ties the record today, but I think Green Bay wins.
Yeah, I think not just Lamar, but yeah, this defense being as bad as it's been all year, I think that is a big factor in this one. I mean, John Harbaugh's been able to kind of keep games close when you don't expect it, but I think the way Rodgers is playing, he's kind of getting even hotter at the right time, and there's just a formula Matt LaFleur has that kind of gets his team going late in the season even further. So I think we're going to see some of that today in a 2-score win for me for Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be 2-score. I do. Again, there's something about the Ravens, like even at home, I'm going to give them a little bit of an edge. Again, maybe this is just a narrative, it's the Ravens at home. Maybe I'm just, again, putting way too much value into that. I just think for some reason, I just get the feeling they're going to keep this game close. And to Ricky's point, I definitely think he's certainly aware of that. He's definitely a guy that takes that into consideration. Like when Tom says he doesn't, Tom Brady or whatever says that he doesn't care about certain like accolades, I think we have enough evidence to show that he really doesn't. I mean, he breaks records and just, he's putting up, 2 or 1 based on, if they need a 1 or 2 point conversion. He doesn't care. I think Aaron Rodgers really cares. And to your point, Ricky, he would love to do that in Green Bay as opposed to not in Green Bay. So I do think that it's going to be kind of a modest, control the clock type of game for Green Bay. Maybe 2 touchdowns, 200 yards from Aaron Rodgers, no turnovers, and you see a lot of A.J. Dillon and the running game and Aaron Jones and stuff. So, but I do think Green Bay wins and maintains that top seed in the conference. Next, the battle of the NFC South. The Bucs are hosting the New Orleans Saints, and this is the team that's really given Brady some trouble in the regular season in his time in Tampa. Their defense is still pretty good and is still relatively healthy. This offense is absolutely shredded, though. I think they won their Super Bowl when they beat the Bucs earlier in the season. It's not going to happen again. I think the Bucs. Maybe not offensively dominant. I think they're going to have a pretty efficient game offensively. I just think this defense is going to key up, really tee off on this really depleted Saints offense. So give me the Bucs at home.
Saints struggled to score last week against the Jets. Now, what are they exactly going to do against the Bucs? I'm still waiting to see when Ian Book is going to get a shot, and that's just because I don't really think Taysom Hill is the answer or the question at quarterback. Leonard Fournette has another big day today for Tampa Bay. He's just in his zone right now. Keep the run game going and flowing for Brady. Tampa wins the South tonight with a huge W.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to this. I think overall, though, I think the biggest thing that's going to hurt New Orleans more than anything offensively is both Ryan Ramczyk and Teron Armstead being out. Ramczyk probably the best right tackle in my opinion in the league. So I think that's gonna kind of get this pass rush going even further. So yeah, I don't really think this will be close. Tampa Bay wins.
All right, and we're going to do both the Monday and Tuesday real quick. So we've talked about this game actually a little bit, but we have Vegas at Cleveland. No Baker Mayfield. I don't know. This is kind of a tough one, but I'll you know what? I'll go with Cleveland. What the hell? Why not? Vegas has really kind of just fallen off the map here in the last few weeks. Really just haven't been playing good football. Give me Cleveland and what should be a really weird and strange. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those weird, strange games where there's going to be turnovers and penalties, and it's going to really be non-aesthetically pleasing. But Cleveland ends up winning.
This could go one of two ways. Either Vegas players are so unhappy that they have to show up for this game Monday instead of Saturday that they come out with not playing well at all, or they come out with their heads on fire and just come after people because they're that angry at Cleveland and they're that angry at the league. I would normally pass on this game, but since you have to make a pick, I'm going to go Vegas, but I'm not confident in it at all.
Yeah, I'm going Vegas as well. I'm not really confident in it. I think this is one of those games. I think it's more about the Browns. I think kind of having to come through with some depleted guys out. Again, like you said earlier, I think they'll get some of those back. But to me, I mean, this has been an offense that barely, been able to put up points. And I think that's going to kind of continue even further on Monday. So I don't love it, but I think Raiders will win.
Next, we got Minnesota at Chicago. I like the Vikings on the road. This again is a divisional matchup, so I'm not going to put anything past any of these teams because they throw caution to the wind when it comes to divisional matchups. But I think at the end of the day, Minnesota gets the job done. So give me the Vikings.
I got a weird feeling about this game, and when I learned that when I didn't take the Texans at one time, and I should have maybe taken them on this show, and that happened. I'm gonna go with the Bears. I think we saw a lot from what they did in Green Bay last week. Justin Fields looked more confident. They made plays on defense and special teams, and it's largely just Minnesota just is inconsistent as they come. They play a great first half, they play awful second half. Kirk Cousins doesn't know how to win on Monday Night Football. What's this game on Monday Night Football? Bears win at home.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because Minnesota's really struggled lately in this series. I do think Justin Fields will play a pretty good game, but Vikings offense right now, I think they're going to play. I think a good enough game all around. I think Cousins is going to kind of continue to push it deep down the field like he has been and have success with it. So I think Vikings will find a way. I think this defense is ready to fall off a cliff. Bashaud Breeland got waived yesterday, apparently after a tantrum with coaches in practice. So defensively, definitely not what Zimmer kind of envisioned, but I think Cousins is playing well enough that they'll win this one.
All right, next we have our Tuesday doubleheader on December the 21st. We got Seattle heading to Los Angeles to take on the Rams, and then Washington at Philadelphia, both at 7 o'clock, both on Fox. So you're only going to get one of those games, folks. Unless you have Red Zone. You might actually, I don't know. Well, I don't know how that's going to work on Tuesday. Either way, 2 games, 7 o'clock, both in the NFC, both within the division. Obviously, Los Angeles fighting for the top overall seed. Seattle, their season is almost near done. I like Los Angeles in this one. Again, I'm not a believer in the Rams until the Rams win. And I mean, like, actually go to the Super Bowl and win. I'm not going to buy or give them credit until that happens based on how, they built this team and kind of what they, how they put their chips in. I do think they win this game because I don't think Seattle's any good. This is a team that I think is heading towards a bit of a changeover in terms of personnel and potentially maybe even quarterback. So in this one, give me the Rams at home to move to, I believe, 10-4 or 10-5 or 10-5. I don't know.
We talked Tyler Lockett being out for this game kind of hurts any chance of Seattle pulling any kind of upset. But we talked about this last week, Ian, when we said it was a statement game for the Cardinals. It was actually a statement game for the Rams. Stafford, I thought, played really well, no turnovers, and a familiar face for both of us starting to emerge. Sony Michel could be a wild card for the Rams in the playoffs. So LA wins. I think they do it with their ground game more so than Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I think the Rams are kind of feeling themselves now. I think they're starting to kind of get Stafford back into a comfortable state. And Sean McVay's just had so much success against Pete Carroll anyway, so I don't see that changing in this game, given how Seattle's kind of played. Russell Wilson, I don't know. It seems like he's kind of still favoring that finger injury a little bit, not really having much consistency going down the field for what we're used to seeing. So don't know how close that much, but I think I trust the Rams always in this matchup against Seattle.
Yeah, maybe rehabbing 19 hours a day, Russell Wilson, was not the right thing to do. Should probably rest it a little bit more. It just doesn't add up. Washington at Philadelphia to end our slate of picks. I like Philadelphia. I am Ron Burgundy. This is as uncertain as I can get. I should really get in the habit of keeping my picks that I made on Friday in front of me, because honestly, I don't even remember who I picked in this game. It probably speaks to how I view this game in general. I don't know. So usually when it's a toss-up, usually when it's an I don't know, I take the home team. I'm going to do that here in this case. Give me Philadelphia.
It's just, to me, I mean, Sweat's probably going to be back for Washington, you think. Jonathan Allen is back. That'll help them defensively in what should be a low-scoring game. But you got to go the Eagles because, just quite frankly, you don't really know who's quarterback for Washington. And even if it's Heineke, he did not look good last week. Kyle Allen actually moved the ball more for this football team. Just because there's uncertainty at quarterback, I'm going to go Philly, even though I think Washington has a better roster. I just think their situation right now, it's just ripe for Philly to get a win at home. And what is a huge NFC playoff type of game.
I'm also going to go with the Eagles. I think, like Ricky said, I think they're in a better situation right now, but I also think that no matter who's quarterbacking for them, they seem to kind of put up points more than Washington does. It seems like even as well as Heineke can move the ball, they always just come up with a lot of drives that end up in meaningless endings. So whoever's quarterback for Washington, I don't think that'll change much. So I'm going to go with the Eagles as well.
There you have it, folks. We just told you exactly what's going to happen over the next couple of days. So why even watch? Well, because it's entertaining, and we're not usually right all the time. But that's going to do it for us here today. Stay tuned in just a few minutes. We're going to have Kyle Senra up here for FPC Fantasy Sunday. So get your lineup set. You're one of the lucky few that actually are playing playoffs this weekend. I am not. I somehow missed the playoffs in an 8-man league, having scored the second most points in the entire league. How does that work? 6 teams make the playoffs in this 8-man league, and I missed the playoffs. Like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not gonna spend 20 minutes ranting about my fantasy failures. I'm just gonna tell you, stay tuned. Listen to Kyle. He knows more than I do. He knows more than all of us. But it's also very entertaining. But thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next Sunday. Have a great weekend.